When I was a little girl, daydreaming was my favorite activity. I could be lost in my own imagination for hours and hours, and I didn't need a book, TV, or any other people around me to entertain myself. When I was daydreaming, I always felt so happy. I felt like anything was possible. I was curious about life. I was just in awe of nature. I could really just follow a butterfly around and make a whole story about the butterfly. And I really felt like I was just floating, and maybe I wasn't really present in my body, but it felt like a really high vibe activity. It felt like it was just such a positive, beautiful, fulfilling thing to do. Now, for other people around me, it was a little bit annoying sometimes because they would talk to me and I would just be floating off into space, and they would be like, "Hey, I'm talking to you. Like, where were you? Where were you?" was an often commonly asked question. And to be honest, I don't even know where I went, but I felt like I was definitely out of the here and now and into someplace else. And then as I went to school, and you're obviously expected to pay attention, I started seeing my daydreaming as like a bit of a negative trait, as a thing that I had to work on, and I had to really learn to be present, pay more attention, and focus on what's in front of me and not just drift off. And while that has been useful, because obviously in some situations it's really necessary to pay attention, to be alert, and being present and being in my body was a really important skill to learn. And I think it's like I talk about this all the time, being present, feeling your body, being where you are right now is a really important thing. But I would also like to make a case for daydreaming, because as adults, I think this is something we don't do enough. And I think it can be so healthy, such a beautiful thing to do. So whether you were like me or not, and whether you were always a daydreamer, whether this is something you never really identified with, either way, I hope to make a case for daydreaming as a beautiful, wonderful part of life. Now, I'd like to point out first that daydreaming is not the same as overanalyzing or worrying, things that I do as well, and I think are very human, but that's not really the same. With worrying or overthinking, there's usually just this focus on like doom scenarios of everything that could go wrong, and it's really sort of fear-based. And overanalyzing is like really being stuck in the head, really being in sort of the rational side of things, and thinking about something too much and really losing that connection with the body. Now, I could talk a lot about worrying and overthinking since those are both things I'm definitely familiar with, but that's not what I want to do today. Daydreaming is different. Daydreaming is that place of like being really in a dreamlike state while you're awake. It is being curious. It is having awe and wonder about life, about nature. It's seeing yourself in possibilities that you've never even thought for yourself. It's being inspired by stories, and it really feels like a beautiful state to be in. And why I think it's so useful is that I think it really helps to see the beauty of life, the beauty of situations. It can create more of an understanding for other people if you can just imagine yourself in their shoes. It really stimulates creativity, like it allows your mind to just come up with things that you're not forcing, you're not controlling, you're literally just letting it do its thing. And that creativity is what is so helpful for us in daily life, to be able to look at things from a different perspective, to find creative solutions that are not based on fear, but on possibilities, to allow our minds to wander to where we want to be, to give ourselves the perspective of what is it we desire? Like, where does our mind go when we let it flow into that dream state? Like, where do we want to take ourselves in our lives? And for me, at least, it just gives me that feeling of like anything is possible. What is it I really desire? And how could I possibly get there? Like, what are ways to look at my situation now and either really see the beauty of it or really see where I want to take myself next? It also really gives me this appreciation for things that maybe normally I don't take the time to notice, like the beauty of nature, the rain, the clouds, the trees, like everything feels so beautiful when I'm in that daydreaming stage. And that just really makes me appreciate things that normally I take for granted. And I think the most important reason why it's so amazing is just because it's so beautiful. It just adds such a joy to life. It adds such a feeling of being so content with yourself, being able to entertain yourself without having the need of anything external. It's really, really nourishing and uplifting. Now, if I have convinced you that daydreaming is indeed a super beautiful thing and something that deserves more time and attention, I would like to give you a few tips on how you can incorporate that a little bit more. Now, obviously, apply this as you see fit. If there's other ways that really help you daydream, definitely do that. Now, I think the first most important thing is that I feel like when I was really young, there was a lot more downtime. There was a lot more time when we were waiting in line somewhere, when we were on the train and didn't really have anything to do. Maybe didn't have a book with us or a podcast we could listen or a friend we could message. There was a lot more time to spend with our thoughts. And even like biking places and just moving around. I think nowadays we often fill that time with entertainment that we take with us, whether that is our phone, whether that is a book, like music, podcasts, anything. We fill up the time that could usually be used for daydreaming. And I think like if you could carve out some time for yourself that you're just going to spend without any entertainment, without anything external, that will give your mind a chance to wander. And that might take some training if you're not used to that. You might have to try that a couple of times. But personally, I use the time on the train to like stare out of the window and just let myself go into that state. Or if I'm biking somewhere where it's quiet and I don't really have to pay attention because there's no traffic going on, I'm just going straight. That is a really good time for me to do it. And you can look at what that time is for you. Is it carving out a bit of time in the morning to just stare with your coffee, just stare out the window? Is it before you go to bed, the last half hour where you're not focusing on TV or any other distractions? Is it while you wait in line at the supermarket? Anytime I think is good as long as it feels like that could be the time where you can safely do it. Don't do it while driving, very important. There are obviously certain activities that really require our attention a bit more, so those are not super suitable for daydreaming. But carving out the time for it is a really, really big one. And the other thing is creating that setting for yourself. So maybe you go into daydreaming automatically when you wait in line, and that goes very easily. But if you notice that your mind will go more into worrying or overthinking, you could try to find music that you really like. You have that really like dream-like music, but whatever works for you. If it helps you just sit at home with your pillows and your own tea and create a background that helps you go into that state. It could also be in nature. Nature, I think, is super inspiring and beautiful. So that could be an environment that really stimulates you to daydream, and play around with that a little bit. And I think if all of this results to be pretty challenging, you could start with writing. Like ask yourself to write about a topic. It could be a flower you saw. It could be yourself in a situation that you would never imagine. I think writing can really stimulate that creative mind. And you can start really, really simple with that. But I think that allows your mind to go there again. It's almost like you give yourself permission to think creatively again, where maybe you didn't do that before. Now, creativity is a whole other topic that I'd like to talk about someday. But stimulating that creative brain in a way that's, for example, writing, can really be helpful to let yourself go into that state. Now, I'd like to point out that I still really believe in the power of being in your body, being present, really focusing on your physical sensations, really showing up in the here and now. But from time to time, to let our minds wander, to go into the dreamlike state and allow our creativity to unfold, is really, really healthy and helpful. And I hope this inspires you to make a little bit more time for that. Thank you so much for listening. And if you want to share your experiences about daydreaming with me, feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next time.